The Vine That Ate the South is a roughly 6 by 8 foot painting that I made in 2018. In some ways, it's a very simple painting that collides two seemingly disparate vignettes into one composition within a large expanse of raw, blank canvas. In other ways, the painting speaks to much larger notions of bigotry, nationalism, terror, land, power, and legacies of race and racial structures in the United States. In my work, I try to prod and confront the American mythos, the imagery that enshrouds a land with a complex and often dark and troubling past and present, all cloaked in a smokescreen of stoic heroism. Certain images or motifs come to mind when we think about our national identity, or what we project it to be. But there are all these other layers that are, while not in the forefront, just as valid for shedding light on a people, a place, or an idea. And the US is all three of these things. Enshrouding is actually a good place to start. The left side of the painting, which is based on a photo I took while driving from Texas to New England, shows a massive kudzu vine growing on the side of the interstate. Kudzu is a vine that the United States imported in the 30s and 40s from Southeast Asia to hold topsoil to prevent soil erosion. The species thrived out of control and has since taken over enormous swaths of the southern United States. This sense of devouring or swallowing, but also covering and enshrouding, seemed very apt to me. In one sense, this could readily allude to current anxieties over immigration, which has unleashed a wave of xenophobia and isolationist policies, the America First mentality. It could also allude to the legacy of Europeans overwhelming and exterminating native peoples and their resources, as the foundations of North America were packaged in the enabling spirit of manifest destiny. But my initial interest in using kudzu was simply as a poetic metaphor for whitewashing our own national baggage. This plant that, while creating these rather beautiful, otherworldly landscapes, does so by smothering the native flora below, by blocking out all of the light. It takes on the volume of what lies beneath, creating these sort of emerald city forms. But it's a facade. We just see the shell, or the skin, and it's actually killing everything underneath it. This felt distinctly southern, as a landscape both literally and figuratively. I say southern as both a real geographic region, but also as a construct, as these issues the painting touches upon are not at all limited to the South. People from the South will recognize kudzu immediately. It's simply ubiquitous there. But it also felt like a fitting metaphor for the history of the US more broadly, the grand, heroic, democratic narrative we posture as a society, versus the darker histories that we sweep under the rug, that we hide, smother, sanitize, or intentionally forget, such as to say, let's not talk about it. So in this painting, I'm thinking about which histories actually construct a nation. What histories actually make up history? How do these histories craft and galvanize a sense of national identity? And how do we actually digest or understand our own history if we don't confront it, all of it, instead of pretending it didn't happen, or didn't exist to the degree to which it did? This side of the painting is in acrylic. I first did it in black and white and then colorized it with layers of green, much like one would colorize an old film still or photograph. For me, this makes it more about image making, in a historical sense, and less about simply painting or about rendering a landscape. What does the landscape tell us? How is it imbued with memory and meaning? If the land is a witness to human activity, and perhaps the only witness, ultimately, what do different landscapes reveal to us of our own past? I did the right side of the painting in oil, a much older medium with a long, rich tradition in Western art history. I wanted this section to look and feel historic in that sense, like it could have been cut out from a painting any time in the last several hundred years. To me, it was a pretty obvious reference to the tiki torch wielding white supremacists in Charlottesville. But I didn't want the painting to be purely topical, because the torch is a complex and ancient tool, and this use was certainly not novel, which is why it was so potent to see today. I tend to avoid directly representing current events in order to extract larger trends or narratives or symbols that speak to longer timelines. The torch, for instance, is a device that we've been using for tens of thousands of years to illuminate our way in the darkness, as a tool for literally lighting our way and even defending ourselves. We couldn't have created our earliest artworks on cave walls without them. But the torch is also an instrument of terror, and I'm interested in the use of flame as a method for claiming space, or for attempting to claim space, whether it is with a simple handheld torch, with arson, or all the way up to a bomb. Different scales of combustion, incendiary devices, all with more or less the same basic goal. So I wanted the flame to be at the same time lush and seductive, but also as a reminder of those dark histories that aren't just that history of black and white photographs and grainy film footage, but of our neighbors and fellow citizens in our own communities, no masks or hoods, at this very moment, holding tiki torches. An image that would actually be sadly funny if it wasn't so troubling, given that the xenophobic white nationalists opted for the convenience of cheap, mass-produced Chinese-made goods of Polynesian origin. I want the two images in the painting to bounce off one another, to contextualize each other. In some ways, they are paintings within a painting, but they're also one painting inhabiting one canvas. They rely on each other and would feel meaningless without the other. Many people see the vignettes as windows or portals, but I also like to think of them as skin, as they reveal the raw materials of the work itself. Because ultimately, the work, like all paintings, is nothing more than colored pigment smeared across some kind of surface. But it's what that simple equation can do that is the power of painting for me. Can art change the world? No, not by itself, but it can provide a vessel for the ideas that can.